Welcome into Mock Trial Masterclass, your guide to controlling the courtroom. I'm Luke and I want you to be a mock trial master. Let's talk about how you can make that happen. A question that one of you guys recently asked me was, Luke, how do I make judges like me? And it's a great question to ask because when a judge likes you, if they have a ballot in their hands that they're scoring, they're going to be more likely to give you a higher score. But even if they're just the presiding judge ruling on objections and making sure the flow of the trial goes as it's supposed to, it really works in your favor when a judge likes you and appreciates what you're doing. So in this video, we're going to answer that question. I'm going to give you 5 tips for making judges like you during a mock trial round. Before we hop in, I want to remind you guys that if you have anything at all you want to see me cover on a future episode on the channel, leave a comment below. I love tackling the topics and questions that you guys want to know more about, and that's exactly what this video is. All right, ready to hop in? Let's do it. Tip number 1 for making judges like you is to listen. If there's one way to make a judge not like you very quickly, it's to not listen. Judges often give very specific instructions throughout a trial. At the beginning of the trial and pre-trial, they're going to tell you their preferences about moving about the courtroom, asking permission to approach witnesses, how they want you to handle objections. And it really pays off to listen to that advice, to actually do what they tell you. Throughout a trial, you might get specific instructions from a judge on any of those points of procedure or another one. Anytime that a judge gives you some kind of instruction or says, hey, throughout the trial, I want you to do this way, go ahead and write that down on your notebook and then do it. Actually listen to the way that judges want you to do things. And then when a judge is talking to you throughout a trial, maybe during an objection argument, maybe you ask the judge a question and they're giving you an answer, pay attention in the moment. Don't be sitting there thinking about what you're going to say next. Be actively listening to what the judge is telling you and then go and do what they're telling you. When a judge feels listened to and like they're not being ignored, that's going to make your likability in their eyes go up. Tip number 2 for making a judge like you is to be polite. And this goes both from you to the judge, being polite to the judge, but also being polite to opposing counsel. In rounds that I've seen judges very clearly not like a student attorney or witness, it usually comes down to that student doing something not necessarily unsportsmanlike, but just not that polite to the other team. You know, if the team says, hey, would you mind leaving your easel up so we can use our exhibit? And you say, no, we're going to take it down. You need to use your own. That's just not very likable, and judges aren't going to really appreciate that. Judges also really appreciate when you're polite to them. And on one hand, that's simply being respectful by addressing the court as your honor and following the correct courtroom protocols and procedures. But it's also just the way you speak to the judge. Are you being respectful or are you being short with the judge? Are you smiling even perhaps when you're talking to the judge? Right? You don't want to get too smiley. I'm not saying that you want to walk around in a trial and just be so happy and excited to be there. But sometimes it pays off to have a smile on your face, especially during preliminary matters. In fact, I often recommend giving the judge a smile when you're introducing yourself. But at the end of the day, you just want to be polite. You don't want to do anything to try to shove off the other team. Show them your exhibits that you're showing your witnesses. If you're going to do an impeachment, have the courtesy to show the other side what you're going to show the witness. And just be polite. Keep the other team in mind and keep the judge in mind. And that's going to really pay off and it's going to help to make the judge like you more. Tip number 3 for making judges like you in mock trial is to argue your objections well. And there's a lot that goes into that. Part of that is simply knowing the rules of evidence, right? Don't misquote a rule of evidence to the judge so badly that they're going to notice. That's going to make them roll their eyes whether they actually do it or if they just do it in their head. If you're going to make an objection to the judge, make sure you know what you're doing. For example, don't object to hearsay on a party opponent statement. For whatever reason, I see that happen all the time in mock trial, but party opponent statements are an exception or an exemption to the hearsay rule, depending on what state you're in. And so it's just a colossal waste of time. And every time I see it happens, attorney stands up, objection, hearsay, and the other side says, Your Honor, this is an admission by a party opponent. And the judge just kind of goes, okay, overruled. Like, that is just a classic way to not make the judge like you. The judges also won't like you if your objection responses are confusing. I talked in a recent video about the need to go for the throat in objection arguments, to actually tell the judge what they're wanting to hear from you rather than going off into this long-winded logical argument, right? If you follow that advice, it's going to make the judge like you because they're going to be able to understand you when you're arguing objections. So, be polished with your objections. Know the rules of evidence. Know the right procedure for making and arguing objections, the ones I talk about all the time on this channel and in my book. If you do that and you're good at objections, judges are really going to like you, because settling objection arguments is one of the harder parts about judging mock trial. I am not a sitting judge on a bench, but I have presided over a lot of mock trial rounds. And when the students don't argue the objections well, that makes my life more difficult because I'm having to do the logical hula hoops and sift through everything. When you do your job in that department, it makes the judge's job that much easier, and they're going to like you that much more. Tip number 4, and this is a big one, don't waste the judge's time. I see so much time wasting happening in mock trial, and no one dislikes that more than a judge. So for example, when it comes to objections, which we talked about earlier, don't make pointless objections. I talk on here and in my book about how you need to only make objections if you think there's a chance you're going to win. We don't just make objections to stop the flow of the trial. If you're repeatedly making objections that you're losing very easily without much fight even having to happen from the other team, judges are going to get annoyed that you're constantly delaying the trial. If you're giving your cross-examinations and you keep belaboring the same point over and over again, and it's like you're never ending, and when are you going to move on and get to the next point? Judges don't like that. If you, for whatever reason, feel the need to redirect every single witness you have and the redirects are useless and aren't actually advancing your case, judges aren't going to like that. Judges who judge mock trial rounds are there on a volunteer basis. They're giving their time for you. They're serving you. And I know not every single one of them does a great job. Not every single one of them is a good judge. But they're there for you, and they're there volunteering, serving you, so don't waste their time with nonsense that's just not necessary. Not only is it just going to delay the trial and make your teammates and the other team and your coach, if it's my team, I'm going to get annoyed. It's not going to annoy all those people, but it's also going to annoy the judge, and there's a really good chance that that judge is scoring the round. So you don't want to do that. Don't waste the judge's time. Before we go over my 5th and final tip for making judges like you, I want to remind you that my book, Mock Trial Masterclass, is available on Amazon. I mentioned my book a few times throughout this video, and it is jam-packed with tips to succeed and excel at mock trial at any level, high school, college, even middle school. I meet a lot of you guys who do middle school mock trial. This book has plenty of tips that are going to help your performance rise to the next level. Whether you're a beginner or you've done this for a little while and you're just looking to take your performance another step forward, you can pick up a copy on Amazon by clicking the link in the description on YouTube or in the show notes on podcast platforms. All right, 5th and final tip for making judges like you, be good. If you're really good at mock trial, if you know what you're doing, you have good technique, good fundamentals, you're an engaging speaker if you're an attorney, you're an engaging character if you're a witness. If you're just really good at what you do, on top of these other 4 tips we went over, judges tend to like that. Judges tend to not like attorneys and witnesses who very clearly have no clue what's going on and aren't good and don't know what they're doing. But on the reverse, when judges start to fall in love with students, 9 times out of 10, it just comes down to they're really, really good. And when you're watching an attorney or a witness give a really good performance, it's hard not to like them. So keep the other 4 tips we talked about in mind, right? Don't waste judges' time. Be polite. Be good with your objections, right? Know the fundamentals of all that. Listen to the judge. But on top of all of that, and at the end of the day, you just got to be good at what you do. And that's why I'm here. That's why this channel is here, to help you take your performance to the next level, to learn all these elements of mock trial and what makes a good performance. But if you can perform like a mock trial master in every other department, that's going to go a long way toward making judges like you. So do that, perform well, give good openings, good directs, good crosses, good performances as a witness, and combine that with these other 4 tips, and judges are going to like you.